Let me try to catch you up on what's been going on. I'm Nate, that's Troy, and I'm riding my Vespa GTS 300 from San Clemente, California to Hilton Head, South Carolina. And I'm not the only crazy person, because I'm participating in the 2023 Scooter Cannonball. Troy and I will be taking my Vespa and 4 other scooters to California on this trailer towed by this car as part of what we're calling our really bad 5-part plan. Find a car that doesn't run and fix it, prepare it to tow our trailer full of scooters, test it to make sure that it's reliable, then drive it from North Carolina to San Clemente, California, back to Hilton Head, South Carolina. And then, when we're all done, we're going to give the car away to someone who needs a car. And we'll know that we're giving them a good car because, well, we'll have just driven it from coast to coast towing a trailer. So here's where we're at. We've got the car running and prepped to tow. We've named it Trevor. We've been testing him, and we've had to work out a few kinks. But now we're ready for part 4 of our really bad 5-part plan. All 5 bikes loaded up. Honestly, I kind of sort of wish I had said no to the 5th one. The 5th one made things a lot more difficult. 4 would have been really easy, but we got it on there. Everything seems to be pretty secure, so we'll keep checking that as we go. And there it is, ready to leave in the morning. 2,455 miles to get there. So we'll see how that goes. We are officially and we are officially underway. Alright, so we're about, 80 miles in. So we just stopped at a rest area to make sure that all of our straps are still tight and nothing's moving, and I think we're in pretty good shape. Mike, rider named Dark, number 9, had a not approved for fuel bottle strapped to his Vespa with this rubber band. Mike, it's somewhere on I-85. You've caused us to litter. Tighten that one a little bit. All right. We're gonna get back on the road. At this point, we're feeling pretty optimistic about our chances of pulling this thing off. We hit some rain, sure, and then some harder rain, but nothing the car couldn't handle. But then we got to a place called Commerce, Georgia, about 200 miles and 3.5 hours from home, and I'm sick to my stomach. Unfortunately, we've had a problem. So yeah, there was some retread in the road and a backup and some cars lost control, and in the end, we ended up facing the wrong direction on the highway. It really was just a wrong place, wrong time type of thing. I mean, you go over in your head 100 times, like, what could you have done different? I'm not sure that there really was much to be done, other than maybe trucking companies being responsible for their retreads. So we get a ride from the police to a local hotel, and you may be wondering, is this the death of Trevor? Well, no, it's not. It is the end of Trevor's Cannonball adventure, and that's kind of sad. I mean, we got a lot of good memories with this car. Let's pause here for just a second. We were originally going to have 5 videos for Trevor, but given what's happened, We're going to put parts 4 and 5 into this video, and then I'm going to have a separate scooter cannonball video. And you want to make sure you stick around to the end of this video where you'll see us use some highly specialized tools and careful techniques to restore Trevor to his original condition. Now, we've got some really good friends who went way out of their way to help us get back on the road and not lose too much time. So by 9 a.m. the next morning, we were at the wrecker yard loading everything off of Trevor and into my Jeep Gladiator so that we could continue on. All the Vespas and the Honda look completely fine. Nothing hit anything, nothing came off. The only real casualty on the trailer was we lost this right-hand side taillight popped out and somewhere in the highway. It's just like a press fit, but we stopped at O'Reilly's and grabbed one and it plugged right in. So it doesn't match the other side, but it's there and it works and we're good to go there. The only other damage, and I don't even know if we could classify this as damage, but the handlebars on my Vespa are slightly tweaked. So the wheel isn't in line with the handlebars, but I know from experience that there's just a nut in here. You can loosen that nut, straighten it out, tighten it back up again. So that should be really not a big deal. Nothing's actually broken. Shouldn't be an actual problem. So huge thank you to Bruce and Gary, who last night didn't get home until probably 2 in the morning. Last night they went to my house, got the Jeep, put the doors back on it, and drove it to us out here in Commerce, Georgia, so that we could be at the wrecker yard at 9 a.m. and get back on the road. So we're going to carry on with the Jeep. Gary, Bruce, we owe you big time. And we set out again. This time, things were actually pretty uneventful. We did make a couple of pit stops along the way, such as this one. What's the point of a road trip if we don't stop and do stupid things that aren't worth the $5, right? Oh, the good aliens helped found America. That's nice to know. It's a nice tractor. Winston Churchill with an alien chauffeur. It's great if you just say, what if? What if it was used for this? I don't know. Maybe it was. I don't know. Are these valid questions? And this is supposed to be the proof of all these theories. I don't know. I'm not entirely convinced, but we did also stop and see our first Buc-ee's. We got a flat tire, but that was easily fixed. And we hit more rim.
That hit hard. I wouldn't get too much of that.
There were a couple of places coming out of Texas and into California where the temperatures were just astronomically high and the grades were really steep. And we began to wonder if Trevor would have actually made this. I mean, there were overheated cars littering the sides of the road, and even the Gladiator was really struggling with some of these grades. But we carried on, saw the Mexican border, and eventually made it to California. You made it.
I made it.
Scooters everywhere. Hey, you made it.
Hey, we made it.
Did you pass your tech inspections? No. And that brought us to day 1 of the scooter cannonball. Troy and I decided to touch the Pacific Ocean with the idea that we would touch the Atlantic Ocean on the other end when we finished. And it is official. We have touched the Pacific Ocean. So what was the official number of people showed up? Was 181 last I saw? 181. We decided that Troy would leave an hour or two later than the riders each day and follow behind just in case they needed support. And it turned out that that support was going to be needed on day one. Troy started his day driving through these amazing mountain views, and when he got to the desert, he climbed a random tower because he does stuff like that. Troy was leaving an hour or two after me, but I'm also not a morning person, so I was leaving an hour or so after most of the other riders as well. Well, driving through Joshua Tree National Park, I came upon a wreck, and it turned out to be one of the riders from our group, number 109 on the red Honda. It turns out that the accident was fairly severe. There was some broken ribs, a concussion, and ultimately he was air flighted to a local hospital. And while it took several months, he did make a full recovery, so that's really good. Nobody actually saw what happened, but he hit this sign on the side of the road, and it ripped up the side of the bike, and then he went down and it took out the other side. Now, there is almost no cell signal anywhere in Joshua Tree. But in this particular spot, I had like 1 bar, and Troy was climbing something, so I was actually able to get a hold of him so he could come and pick up the Honda. By the time Troy got back to the truck and got to where we were, it had been a couple of hours, and there was no shade, and it was really hot. So when he got there, we were pretty happy. So we got the bike loaded up, which actually turned out to be fairly easy because it still ran just fine. All right, it is loaded. If it's feeling like it's too, like the tongue is not heavy enough, stop and call me and we'll move it forward. But I think it should be okay because it's still off forward of the axles. So.
Alright, I'm gonna head to the hospital.
Alright. And at the end of the day, we did both make it to Lake Havasu, Arizona, albeit a little bit later than we had hoped. On day 2, Troy had an uneventful drive to Winslow, Arizona through these incredible desert landscapes that I know he enjoys as much as I do. He did stop and climb a tree because, well, that's what Troy does. Day 3 had us headed to Los Alamos, New Mexico, and Troy really enjoyed these roads. He did say that some of the switchbacks were really tricky with the trailer because the road is pretty narrow and the trailer is longer than the Jeep. But Troy did great. When he got to the hotel, he did ask me to go ahead and park the Jeep and trailer because this place did not have enough parking and things were pretty squeezy, and Troy did not want to be responsible for running over anyone else's scooters. After we get everything settled, we got together with the rest of the North Carolina crew and went and had dinner.
Well, I
Day 5. Here we are.
Day 5. Yeah, that's going in the video, but I'll have to stop it and say it was actually only day 3.
Scott said it was day 3.
Day 4 had us headed to Guymon, Oklahoma. And this was a great day. It had some of everything. The mountains in New Mexico were amazing. And of course, Troy found more opportunity to climb things. I'm pretty sure those were Cannonball participants. If you remember passing by a blue Jeep with a red Honda Reflex on a trailer, let me know. And the latter part of the day was spent in Oklahoma. We both love driving through Oklahoma. You can go for hours on long straight roads and never see another soul. It's epic, and you have a cell signal the entire time. This day was also special because it was Troy's 21st birthday, so after we got to the hotel, we got together and had an impromptu birthday party at pretty much the only restaurant in the entire place. So this place is classy. It's got carpeted doors.
And, did you see this? This is if you're a member of the club.
Oh yeah, member of the club, and you got to get in the window. I mean, and it's got a glitter sign. This is the birthday hangout for sure. We're at a very, very old school restaurant in the middle of nowhere, Oklahoma, where Troy has turned 21 and opted not to get a beer. So it's actually not the worst decision. So
I was gonna say push it.
yeah, said the same as when he was 20.
Yeah.
Day 5, Oklahoma. Not much more to say. Day 6 was an uneventful day, making our way to Arkansas. The geography did start to feel a little bit more like home. Day 7 was another uneventful ride on the way to Rome, Georgia. Now, over the past few days, Troy and I had been discussing what to do about Trevor. Were we going to just send him off to a junkyard, or were we going to try and salvage something? As it turns out, Scott's brother was going to be picking up the red Honda in Rome, Georgia, and bringing it back home, leaving us with an empty trailer. So,
I think the key's in the ignition.
there is Scott's Honda, no longer on our trailer, because Scott's brother picked it up. And Troy, instead of going to Hilton Head tomorrow, is going to go and pick up the car and bring it home. And so that's exactly what he did. He went and got the car, he brought it back, and now here's where things get kind of fun. Because we had 2 issues to address. One, we were going to be giving Trevor away, and we had kind of already told the people who we were giving it to that we were giving it to them. So we needed to find another vehicle. And then 2, we needed to see if we could get Trevor on the road again in any way that would make him useful. We knew that we couldn't give away Trevor in his current condition. That's not much of a gift. So after talking to the mother of the young man who we were going to be giving Trevor to, we went out and picked up this red Mazda B3000, which is basically a Ford Ranger. We did that because red is his favorite color, and if he were picking any vehicle, it would be a pickup truck. So in a way, this worked out really well for him. This truck was actually in fairly decent condition, and it ran pretty well already. It had a misfire, but it turned out to just be a cracked spark plug, so it wasn't a big deal to fix. Oh, and Troy's younger brother Connor was helping me pick this truck up, so welcome to the video stylings of Connor. Anyway, we did pick up a flat tire on this trip, but a whole lot better here really close to home than somewhere in the middle of nowhere, Oklahoma. They are culprit. That's why we got a flat tire. I'm hoping I can just pump it up and we can make it home and deal with it later. Unfortunately, that plan worked. So we got it home, fixed a couple of things, and had it ready in time for this young man's 16th birthday. Now, personally, I'm of the mind that most kids should go to work and earn their first car. I made both my kids do that. But in this particular case, there were some things that happened in this young man's life that were completely outside of his control, and he's a really good kid, and he has done a lot to help his family. And Troy and I both felt good about this being the person that we gave a vehicle to. And we had talked about this with his mother before we had even left for California with Trevor. He had no idea, so when he pulled up for his party, this was a complete surprise.
Here's the keys.
I'm about to beat you.
And what is the fate of Trevor, you may be asking? So, at first glance, it doesn't seem too bad, but when you come around the side here, you'll see that the hitch and everything is about 3 or 4 inches off center. The trunk overlaps. This door doesn't line up. So the whole rear of the car is tweaked over about 4 inches. But it does run. You're good. You're gonna have to gun it. The hitch. And if you look at this wheel, it's missing an actual big chunk of wheel.
Still in there though.
It's still holding air though. It's actually amazing. I would not drive it very far like that. We parked Trevor for, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks before we had time to get back to him. Look at the bulge in the tire. You can see it bulging out. That bead is hanging on by like 1/8 of an inch. I cannot believe this thing still has air in it. That's actually kind of amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely hitting the fenders. Chunks taken out of the tire.
Yeah. Yep. Big cuts here. So I don't know. I don't know if this is worth trying to put on the road or not. If the frame isn't bent, or if it would make like the perfect demolition derby car. That became our plan. We either get Trevor back on the road, or we bring him to our local demolition derby. So we are going to start by pulling this thing up into the driveway. Oh, the battery's dead. Okay, we're going to start by jumping the battery. Then we're going to pull the car up here into the driveway, and we're going to see if there's anything visually obvious with the frame. If there's not, then we're going to look at what we can do to pull this dent out so it doesn't cut into the wheel. We're going to see if we can, like, I don't know, yank this thing back over. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Well, she still runs. So, there's that. She runs and actually sounds good. We pulled Trevor up into the driveway and began our investigation. I don't know why that tire is still holding air. It really makes actually no sense at all. We discovered that the frame actually was bent, but it was bent behind where the rear axle attaches to the frame. So theoretically, it shouldn't affect the usability of the car as far as actually driving. Our next step was to remove the filler neck from the car so that we could have access to this rear panel and see what we could do about getting it out away from the tire. We got it unbolted, but because the panel was pushed in and the frame was pushed in, but the gas tank wasn't pushed in, that filler neck was trapped in there and we couldn't get it out. Normally they just come right out that filler neck hole. So after some discussion, we came up with the rather brilliant plan of attaching a strap to the filler neck and then attaching the other end of the strap to our Subaru sandbar and seeing if we could gently pull it out with a little bit of force. So you tell me when to stop or if nothing's happening, okay?
Yeah.
And we'll see how bad of an idea this is. And much to our surprise, it actually worked. I can't believe that worked. Nice. And that worked so well that we thought maybe the same technique would work for pulling the dent out of the side of the car, because now we could wrap that strap right around that whole fender through the filler neck hole.
take the thing off before we...
After a careful examination, Troy said, we needed to hit it a little harder. That last pull, that was the magic ticket right there.
That's actually quite a bit improved.
At this point, all the doors closed, the trunk latched, none of the windows were broken. Basically good as new. Okay, maybe not as good as new. We still had to do something about this lip of the fender cutting into the tire. Now, it was basically as good as new. Oh, and believe it or not, the fuel filler door actually works properly.
Yep.
We continued to make slight tweaks here and there with judicious use of the 5-pound sledgehammer, and eventually it was time for a road test. Connor, who's got the 93 Crown Vic up there, he has a full-size spare. This car came with a little donut spare. So we have got the filler neck back in the car, and we believe enough clearance for this tire, but we're gonna test drive this using Connor's tire. Now, what's really cool, this spare tire, never seen the road. It is from 1992. I mean, this is a 30-year-old piece of rubber. It looks incredible. It's what happens when you store them in a nice place. I still wouldn't trust it too much, but makes for a good spare. Look, still even got the little Michelin Man on the tread. So we're gonna try it and see if it's any good. So there's two things that we'll be looking for. One is how it feels. Does it feel like it's driving, you know, like you're having to keep it turned to keep it from turning off? And the second thing is, does the car track straight, or is it crab walking, you know, with the rear end out to one side and the front end out to the other side?
Yeah, I guess you can see that if you're following.
Yeah, I'll follow you. I should be able to see that visually. So I'll just follow you in the sandbar. I mean, you can hardly tell it happened. Looks almost perfect. I mean, right now, not as much because the sun is coming down and there's shadows, but
It's very dark outside, you won't be able to tell.
right time of day, you wouldn't even notice. And the other side looks great.
Just make sure you're parking in a way that nobody can see that side.
Yeah, just park with the passenger side facing out. If you go to like pick up a date or something, just make sure that you pull up with the passenger side out and don't let her see this side. I'm gonna try and record and drive a manual transmission. And in the end, here's what we discovered. The car ran and drove great. So Troy decided to take it home and keep it. Troy actually prefers a car with a little damage because he doesn't have to worry about it. If it gets scratched or someone hits a door in the parking lot, doesn't matter. Plus, for him, the car is free, and Troy is all about being frugal, which is how he was able to buy his own house when he was 19. After a few hundred miles, Troy did discover a little bit of weird brake wear, and it turns out that axle shaft on the driver's side was tweaked just a little bit. So he replaced that and replaced the bearings, and it's been completely fine. Eventually, he found a matching rim at a junkyard for like $35 and gave his brother his spare back. We were actually able to use the tire that was on the broken rim. Our tire guy said that the damage was just cosmetic and the tire was safe. Troy has put around 20,000 miles on the car, driving all over the East Coast. And we've discussed giving Trevor a second shot at supporting a scooter Cannonball in 2025 from Seaside, Oregon to South Padre Island, Texas. We'll see how the car's doing then. But for now, Trevor's being driven as a daily driver, just like he is. It's a fitting end. Join me next time to follow along from my perspective in the 2023 scooter Cannonball. And until then, thanks for watching. Oh, and one last thing. Scott, if you're watching, I think that you should let me give your Honda Reflex a second chance at a scooter Cannonball in 2025. Let me know.